Scattered across the globe, ancient symbols carved in stone tell a silent, unified story. A mysterious global symbol language appears in civilizations that should have had no contact, from the spirals of Ireland's Newgrange to the animal pillars of Turkey's Göbekli Tepe. This is not fantasy, but a tangible archaeological puzzle suggesting a shared human heritage far older than our written histories. By the end of our journey, you will see these stones not as silent relics, but as pages from a lost global dialogue. How could the same symbols appear worldwide? And what were our ancestors trying to say across the millennia? That urge to make a mark is a thread connecting us directly to our deepest past. Long before the great stone circles were raised, a fundamental shift occurred within the human mind. It was a quiet revolution, not fought with weapons, but with a piece of ochre and a determined hand. In a cave on the coast of South Africa, known today as Blombos, we find the evidence of this monumental leap. Etched onto a small piece of red ochre are a series of deliberate crosshatches, a geometric pattern created by one of our ancestors roughly 70,000 years ago. To our modern eyes, these scratches might seem simple, almost accidental, but to archaeologists they are a thunderclap. This was not a tool, not a weapon. It was an idea made permanent. This was one of the very first times a human intentionally created an abstract design, a symbol that stood for something beyond itself. Cognitive archaeologists describe this moment as a symbolic explosion, the ability to look at a series of lines and assign it a shared meaning, perhaps for a clan, a spiritual belief, or a map of the stars, was a cognitive breakthrough as revolutionary as the invention of the wheel. It meant that experiences, knowledge, and identity could now be stored outside of a single human memory to be passed down through generations. This was the birth of shared culture. This foundational capacity, this mental toolkit for symbolism, is the common root from which all later civilizations would grow. It is the essential precursor to the mysterious global language carved in stone. The zigzags and spirals found across the world are not the first words of that language, but the direct descendants of that first, brave mark made in a South African cave. So the question is not merely what these symbols mean, but why this specific symbolic vocabulary, born from a shared human mind, appears to have traveled to every corner of the ancient world. This journey into our shared symbolic past begins with a single, twisting line. Etched into a stone slab in the heart of Ireland's Newgrange tomb, a massive triple spiral stares back at the modern world. This triskelion, with its three arms gracefully curling from a central point, is one of the most iconic symbols of ancient Europe. Yet, if we trace this same spiral motif across the globe, we find it waiting for us in the most unexpected places. In the sun-baked deserts of the American Southwest, the same coiled forms are painted on canyon walls by ancestral Pueblo peoples. On the remote Mediterranean islands of Malta, gigantic spiral carvings wind their way through the chambers of the hypogeum, a subterranean temple complex. And in the ancient rock art of Aboriginal Australia, the serpentine spiral often represents the rainbow serpent, a foundational creator being. How can we explain this seemingly universal signature? The spiral is not merely a common shape, it is a symbol layered with profound and often parallel meanings. In Celtic Europe, the triskelion is frequently interpreted as a representation of the continuous cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Its three arms might symbolize the three realms of land, sea, and sky, or the past, present, and future flowing into one another. Half a world away, The labyrinthine spiral designs of Minoan Crete are thought to depict a symbolic journey to the center of the self and back out again, a ritual of transformation. Meanwhile, some researchers suggest these spirals could have functioned as celestial maps, charting the perceived motion of the sun, moon, and stars across the heavens. Another compelling theory proposes they are depictions of energy vortices, a way for ancient seers to illustrate the unseen forces they believed flowed through the earth and the human body. The sheer pervasiveness of the spiral points to something deeper than cultural exchange. It suggests a fundamental, possibly intuitive, human recognition of the cyclical patterns that govern our very existence. Our ancestors, looking out at their world, saw the same spirals in the unfurling of a fern, the whirl of a hurricane, the shape of a galaxy, and the coil of DNA within every living thing. This was a universal observation leading to a universal expression. The spiral became a natural, powerful shorthand for concepts of journey, growth, and cosmic order. It stands as our first major clue that the global language carved in stone may not be a single, lost tongue, but a collective vocabulary born from humanity's shared experience of a living, turning world. From the dynamic spiral, we arrive at a symbol of profound stillness. A simple circle, sometimes punctuated by a single central point, appears with startling consistency across the ancient world. In the dry heat of Egypt, it shines as the solar disk of the god Ra, a literal and spiritual representation of the life-giving sun. Far to the east, within the intricate geometric designs of Indian yantras, this same form serves as a focal point for meditation, a map of cosmic energy. And thousands of miles across the ocean, we find it etched into the shields of Mesoamerican warriors and painted in the sacred art of Native American cultures. This is not a case of vague similarity, but a precise and recurring motif. How did this most basic of shapes become a universal cornerstone of human expression? Its interpretations are as layered as the cultures that used it. On its most immediate level, the circle and dot is an undeniable solar symbol. Every human civilization watched the same brilliant orb traverse the sky, felt its warmth, and depended on its light for survival. It is the most logical, the most visible of all celestial bodies. To depict it as a circle with a central point was a natural act of observation, a way to capture the essence of the sun itself. Yet this symbol often transcended its physical origins, venturing into the realm of philosophy and cosmology. In esoteric traditions, the form takes on a deeper, more abstract meaning. The central dot can be seen as the primordial singularity, the point of infinite potential from which all existence emerges. The surrounding circle then becomes the manifest universe, the entirety of creation expanding outward from that single source. It is a complete cosmology in its most minimalist form. This idea of wholeness finds a powerful echo in modern psychology. Carl Jung identified the circle, or mandala, as a universal archetype representing the self, the integrated and complete human psyche. The dot at the center could be seen as the essential core of individual consciousness, around which the totality of one's being is organized. So we are left with a symbol that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. It is the sun in the sky, the cosmos in its entirety, and the self, all contained within one elegant, universally understood form. Its power lies in this incredible versatility. The circle and dot was not a single word with one fixed meaning, but rather a fundamental concept, a basic unit of meaning that different cultures could adapt to their own understanding of the world, the divine, and their own inner lives. This profound simplicity is precisely what makes it such a compelling candidate for a global symbolic lexicon. The stillness of the circle gives way to a path of deliberate, winding complexity. Across continents and cultures, our ancestors carved intricate labyrinths and meandering patterns, transforming stone into a profound philosophical statement. Far from being confined to the myth of the Minotaur in Crete, the labyrinth appears in the stone Troggerborgs of Scandinavia, the threshold art of India, and the sacred man in the maze, symbol of the Hopi people. This is not merely a decorative motif, but a universal map for the human journey. The myth from ancient Crete tells of a hero navigating a convoluted maze to confront a great challenge at its heart. This narrative finds a stunning parallel in the Hopi man in the maze, an intricate design that explicitly depicts an individual's path through life, with its many choices, trials, and turns, all leading toward a center of understanding. In Northern Europe, walking the turf labyrinths was not a game, but a spiritual pilgrimage, a physical act representing an inner quest. The shared symbolism is breathtakingly consistent. The difficult, winding path universally represents life's challenges and the choices we face. The center is not a fearsome beast, but the ultimate goal, enlightenment, wisdom, or a meeting with the divine. The journey out again, often overlooked, signifies the return to the world with newfound knowledge or a transformed spirit. How could cultures separated by vast oceans independently arrive at such a specific and layered metaphor? It suggests a parallel development of a core human philosophy, a shared realization that life is not a straight line, but a sacred, circuitous journey of learning. The labyrinth, etched in stone from the Mediterranean to the American Southwest, becomes a collective acknowledgement that the path to wisdom is never easy, but its destination is universally recognized. This shared spiritual cartography points to something innate in the human psyche, a deep-seated understanding that our greatest trials are not obstacles, but the very path itself. From the winding path of the labyrinth, we arrive at a symbol that reaches out and touches us directly. Pressed against cold cave walls from the dawn of time, the negative hand stencil is a ghostly echo of a person long gone. In the deep caves of El Castillo in Spain, a handprint was left over 40,000 years ago, one of the oldest human signatures in the world. On the other side of the planet, in the limestone casts of Maros in Indonesia, strikingly similar stencils appear, created by artists separated by an entire hemisphere and tens of thousands of years. This is not a complex geometric pattern, but something profoundly simple and intimate. The technique was universal. A person would place their hand flat against the rock and blow a spray of pigment, often red ochre or black manganese, over it. When the hand was pulled away, its perfect outline remained, a personal void in a field of color. What compelled this same specific act across such impossible distances? One compelling theory is the most straightforward, that this was the original signature. In the profound darkness of a cave, lit only by flickering torchlight, an individual may have sought to leave a permanent record of their presence, a way to tell the future, "I was here." This simple act of marking existence resonates with a fundamental human need for recognition. Yet another interpretation suggests a much deeper, ritualistic purpose. The hand is our primary tool for interacting with the world, for creating, for touching, for healing. By capturing its essence on the stone, our ancestors may have been engaging in a form of sympathetic magic, attempting to transfer their own life force, their power, or their very spirit into the enduring rock. It could have been a way to connect with the ancestors, layering one generation's hands over another's, creating a tangible lineage in the silent dark. The global prevalence of this single, powerful gesture points to something innate within us all. It is a non-linguistic cry of identity, a universal statement of being that transcends any specific culture or language. Each stencil is a frozen moment, a direct connection to an individual who lived, breathed, and felt the same urge we might feel today to leave our own mark upon the world. They are a silent, global chorus of voices, each one insisting I existed. These ghostly handprints give way to another, even more cryptic form of human expression. Carved into the living rock of the British Isles, across the highlands of Europe, and as far afield as India, we find the mysterious cup and ring marks. These are not simple scratches but complex designs of astonishing precision. A central, bowl-like depression, the cup, is meticulously pecked into the stone. Surrounding it are multiple, perfect concentric circles, and often a single carved channel, like a gutter, leads directly away from the center. They appear in powerful places, etched onto the slabs of ancient burial cairns, across the surfaces of ritual enclosures, and on natural rock outcrops that overlook sweeping landscapes. The sheer effort involved in their creation is staggering, each mark requiring hours of patient, deliberate pecking with a stone tool. This was not casual graffiti, it was an act of immense purpose. But what was that purpose? The interpretations are as varied as the locations themselves. Some researchers see the stars in these circles, proposing they are maps of important constellations, a Neolithic astronomy chart carved in granite. Others suggest a more spiritual function, viewing the design as a symbolic portal or doorway to another realm, with the central cup acting as a conduit between worlds. A more tangible theory posits their use in ritual, where the cups might have collected sacred liquids, perhaps rainwater, dew, or ceremonial offerings, with the gutter channel allowing the fluid to flow away, maybe anointing the rock or a participant. There is even a fascinating suggestion that these were the playing boards for ancient games of strategy, the cups holding markers for a ritualized contest. Yet the sheer geographical spread of this specific, complex symbol points to something more profound than any single use. It suggests a shared idea, a core piece of Neolithic cosmology that was understood across vast distances. The cup and ring mark seems to encapsulate a fundamental concept, perhaps of a central life force emanating outward in waves, or a sacred point of connection to the ancestors or the divine. Its persistence tells us that for these early communities, the very landscape was a canvas for their beliefs, and these carvings were a permanent dialogue with the powers they saw in the world around them. This move from universal patterns to these complex, localized yet widespread symbols hints at a further evolution, from shared observation to the deliberate carving of meaning and authority into the stone itself. As societies coalesced into kingdoms and empires, the symbols they carved into the world evolved from personal marks to proclamations of power. A new, universal iconography of rule emerged, speaking a language of authority understood from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the jungles of Mesoamerica. The first of these powerful symbols is the stepped pyramid, a form that rose independently in both the ziggurats of the ancient Near East and the towering temples of the Maya and Aztec. What compelled these disparate cultures to build these colossal stairways to the sky? The answer lies in a shared worldview that placed their rulers at the very center of the cosmos. For the priest-kings of Mesopotamia, ascending the ziggurats levels was a symbolic journey from the earthly realm to the domain of the gods. It was a physical manifestation of their unique role as the bridge between humanity and the divine. Half a world away, the Maya built their own pyramidal temples, where rulers performed rituals believed to sustain the very order of the universe. The stepped pyramid was more than just architecture. It was a statement carved in stone, declaring that the ruler's authority was a cosmic necessity, a literal elevation that connected the heavens to the earth. Another symbol that traversed continents and centuries to signify supreme rule is the double-headed eagle. This formidable icon first appears in the art of the ancient Hittites, a Bronze Age empire in Anatolia. Centuries later, it was adopted by the Byzantine Empire as a potent emblem of the emperor's power, and from there it spread into the heraldry of medieval and early modern Europe, from the Holy Roman Empire to Imperial Russia. The eagle itself has always represented imperial strength and far-reaching vision. But why two heads? The genius of this symbol lies in its duality. One head gazes toward the spiritual world, the domain of faith and divine mandate. The other head looks upon the temporal world, the realm of law, governance, and military might. The double-headed eagle thus became the perfect symbol for an emperor who claimed to rule by divine right, asserting authority over both the church and the state, over the soul of the nation and its physical borders. Its recurrence across millennia suggests that the challenge of governing vast, complex societies often led to this same symbolic solution, a declaration that true power must watch over both heaven and earth. Completing this trifecta of universal power symbols is the serpent, a creature of profound and paradoxical meaning. In ancient Egypt, the cobra or uraeus adorned the crown of the pharaoh, a protective emblem of royal power and divine authority ready to strike against the enemies of order. Yet in the same Nile Valley, the serpent could also represent Apophis, the great chaos serpent that threatened to consume the sun and plunge the world into darkness. This dual nature is echoed in the Amazon, where anacondas and other great snakes appear in creation myths as both life-giving ancestors and destructive forces. The serpent, with its ability to shed its skin, became a near-universal symbol of rebirth, healing, and cyclical time. But for rulers, it represented something more, the terrifying and necessary wisdom required to govern. To wield power was to harness chaos, to control the primal forces of both creation and destruction for the good of the kingdom. The serpent symbolized the ruler's intimate knowledge of these dangerous, fundamental powers, a wisdom that could protect the people from the very chaos it represented. The emergence of these shared symbols, the pyramid, the double eagle, and the serpent, points to a fascinating convergence. As human societies faced the universal challenges of organizing vast populations, they seem to have independently arrived at a similar symbolic vocabulary to express the nature of authority, the connection to the divine, and the sobering wisdom needed to rule. This was no longer just a language of shared observation, but a grammar of power carved in stone across the ancient world. These monuments of stone are more than just collections of carvings, they are colossal symbols in their own right. The sheer scale of sites like Stonehenge in England or the endless rows of Karnak in France speaks to a shared architectural vision that spanned the globe. From the massive moai of Easter Island to the geometric circles of West Africa's Senegambia, our ancestors were moved to arrange immense stones with a common purpose. The principles behind these constructions reveal a deep, cross-cultural understanding. The builders employed a sophisticated sense of geometry, often laying out their monuments using Pythagorean triangles and complex circular patterns thousands of years before such mathematics were formally documented. This was not crude stacking, it was applied cosmic engineering. The most compelling evidence for a shared knowledge system lies in the skies. Time and again, these stone circles and rows are precisely aligned with the sun and moon. The central axis of Stonehenge frames the rising sun on the summer solstice, while the great tomb of Newgrange, older than the pyramids, allows the winter solstice sunrise to pierce its inner chamber in a dramatic burst of light. In the American Southwest, the sun dagger petroglyph on Fajoda but uses shifting sunbeams to mark the solstices and equinoxes with razor-sharp accuracy. This global preoccupation with celestial cycles points to a universal human need. For emerging agricultural societies, tracking the seasons was not abstract science, it was survival. Knowing precisely when to plant and when to harvest was the difference between prosperity and hardship. These stone calendars, built at immense collective cost, became the beating heart of their communities, anchoring them to the reliable rhythm of the cosmos. The effort itself is a powerful symbol. To move a 80-ton sarsen stone across the English countryside, or to erect thousands of granite pillars in coastal France, required the coordinated labor of thousands of people over generations. This implies a shared belief system so strong it could command such a unified effort. The monument became a permanent declaration of communal identity, a testament to a people's unity and their place within a harmonious cosmic order. The structure itself was the message, a macro symbol of humanity's relationship with the universe. The widespread appearance of this megalithic grammar, this knowledge of how to build with the heavens, raises a profound and tantalizing question. Was this knowledge independently born in the minds of isolated cultures, or did it travel across the seas, carried by intrepid explorers whose names are lost to time? These stone circles, aligned with the heavens, whisper a tantalizing possibility. Could the knowledge to build them have traveled across the seas? The startling consistency of symbols and architectural principles worldwide has led to a controversial but compelling theory, the seafaring hypothesis. This idea proposes that long before the Vikings or Columbus, prehistoric mariners undertook incredible voyages, creating a web of cultural exchange that spanned the globe. It is a theory that directly challenges the traditional view of ancient civilizations developing in total isolation from one another. The immediate question is one of capability. Could people from the Stone Age have built vessels strong enough to cross entire oceans? Evidence suggests the answer might be yes. We know that tens of thousands of years ago, the first peoples reached Australia, a journey that required crossing significant stretches of open water. By the time of the ancient Egyptians, they were constructing large, seaworthy ships from cedar planks, capable of sailing the Red Sea. In the Pacific, the ancestors of the Polynesians were the greatest navigators of the ancient world. They built massive double-hulled canoes and, without compasses or charts, mastered the art of wayfinding, reading the subtle patterns of stars, waves, and bird migrations to discover and settle thousands of islands across the world's largest ocean. If they could navigate the vast Pacific, could they have reached the Americas? This is where the theory gains intriguing support from unexpected fields. Genetic studies have revealed a faint but traceable Native American genetic signal present in some populations of Easter Island, suggesting a prehistoric contact across the Pacific. Linguists have also pointed to curious similarities, such as the word for sweet potato, a plant native to South America. This same word, kumara, is found in the languages of Polynesian islands and even in parts of New Zealand. The most direct physical evidence comes from the coast of Chile, where archaeologists uncovered chicken bones, an animal native to Southeast Asia, dating from a time before European contact. These disparate clues, a genetic trace, a shared word, and a misplaced chicken, collectively point to some form of transoceanic interaction. Yet, for all its intrigue, the seafaring hypothesis remains fiercely debated. Skeptics rightly point out that similar symbols can arise independently through a process known as convergent evolution, where different cultures arrive at the same solution to a universal human problem. A pyramid shape, for instance, is simply the most stable way to build a tall structure. The sun is a circle to everyone who sees it. The labyrinth is a powerful metaphor for life's journey that many cultures could have discovered on their own. The evidence, while suggestive, is not yet conclusive enough to prove regular, two-way trade routes across the oceans. So where does this leave our global language carved in stone? The seafaring hypothesis does not need to be definitively proven to be valuable. It forces us to reimagine the ancient world not as a collection of isolated lanterns, but as a dimly lit network where ideas, like sparks, could occasionally jump vast distances. It expands our understanding of human ingenuity and courage, presenting our ancestors not as primitive cave dwellers, but as intrepid explorers who looked upon the horizon and dared to see what was on the other side. Whether the symbols traveled with them or simply arose from the shared wiring of the human mind, their universal presence tells a story of connection that is far deeper and more complex than we ever thought. But what if the sea routes were empty? The diffusionist view, with its daring seafarers, is powerfully challenged by another, equally profound explanation. This alternative theory suggests the global language was not carried across oceans, but was instead programmed deep within us from the very beginning. It is known as the theory of psychic unity, the idea that all human minds share the same fundamental cognitive wiring. From this perspective, the spiral and the circle are not imports, but innate expressions, emerging independently wherever humans gathered to make sense of their world. The most detailed map of this inner landscape was drawn by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. He proposed the existence of a collective unconscious, a hidden layer of the human psyche shared by all of humanity. Think of it not as containing personal memories, but as a deep well of universal psychic potential. From this wellspring, he argued, arise archetypes, primordial patterns and symbols that form the basic building blocks of our dreams, our myths, and our art. These are not learned images, but inborn templates. The hero who ventures into the unknown, the nurturing mother figure, the wise old man, the treacherous shadow, the quest for wholeness symbolized by the mandala. Jung saw these recurring motifs as psychic organs, as fundamental to the human mind as the liver or the heart is to the body. From this vantage point, the global symbol language makes perfect sense. When a Neolithic artist in Ireland carved a triple spiral into a tomb, and a shaman in the American Southwest painted a similar coil on a canyon wall, they were not copying a design from a traveling merchant. They were both independently tapping into the same deep archetypal current within the collective unconscious. They were giving form to the same intuitive understanding of cyclical time, growth, and cosmic energy, because the human brain, when contemplating the great mysteries of existence, naturally tends to produce the same symbolic solutions. The labyrinth then becomes the archetypal map of the individuation journey, the difficult path to the center of the self. The circle and dot is the archetype of the self, the central core of the psyche. This theory transforms our understanding of these ancient stones. They are not evidence of a single, lost mother culture, but a breathtakingly widespread testament to the parallel evolution of the human spirit. The global language carved in stone was not transmitted. It was revealed again and again, a natural and beautiful outgrowth of the human mind confronting the universal wonders of life, death, and the star-filled cosmos. So how do we translate this silent, global language? The process is less about finding a single Rosetta Stone and more like assembling a vast, multidimensional puzzle. Modern researchers are no longer just sketching symbols in a notebook. They wield a sophisticated, multidisciplinary toolkit that merges the ancient with the cutting edge. It all begins with the most fundamental question, context. Where exactly is the symbol found? A spiral carved on a tomb entrance carries a different potential meaning than the same spiral etched onto a ceremonial object or painted near a water source. Archaeologists meticulously record every detail of the symbol's surroundings, building a profile that helps narrow its possible function, from a marker of sacred space to a funerary inscription. But a single site can only tell you so much. This is where statistical analysis becomes crucial. By mapping the distribution of a specific symbol, say the cup and ring mark, across a whole continent, researchers can identify patterns of cultural connection or track the potential migration of an idea. If the symbol appears with greater frequency along river valleys or coastal trade routes, it paints a picture of how knowledge may have flowed. Technology now allows us to see what the naked eye cannot. Digital imaging techniques like photogrammetry and 3D modeling can capture a stone's surface in minute detail. By manipulating light angles and enhancing contrast, these digital tools can resurrect carvings that have been worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain, revealing intricate patterns long thought lost. The very pigments used to create these symbols hold secrets of their own. Chemical analysis of red ochre or black manganese can act like a forensic fingerprint, sometimes tracing the material back to its specific quarry. This can unveil astonishing prehistoric trade networks, proving that the ideas or the people carrying them moved across far greater distances than we ever imagined. Perhaps the most profound tool comes from listening to the living. When possible, archaeologists collaborate closely with indigenous and descendant communities, studying ethno-historical accounts and oral traditions. A symbol that might be an abstract mystery to an outsider could be a well-known clan emblem or a part of a creation story for the people whose ancestors created it. This partnership provides an invaluable cultural context that pure archaeology can never uncover on its own. And finally, the science of the mind itself offers clues. Cognitive scientists study how the human brain is hardwired to perceive and assign meaning to shapes. Why do we so naturally see a face in the moon? Why are certain geometric patterns like zigzags or concentric circles so prevalent in the art of very young children and in altered states of consciousness? This research suggests that some symbols may tap into the fundamental architecture of our neural pathways, representing universal patterns of thought rather than a specific learned language. This modern, evidence-based approach is slowly building a new grammar for the stones. It is a patient synthesis of place, pattern, technology, and memory, allowing us to move beyond speculation and listen, truly listen, to the echoes of a conversation that began at the dawn of human consciousness. Deep in the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, a man-made mountain guards a secret that rewrites human history. Göbekli Tepe, built over 11,000 years ago, stands as a profound enigma. This is not a city or a fortress, but a series of immense stone circles constructed by hunter-gatherers, a people we once believed lived only simple, nomadic lives. Its staggering age places it thousands of years before the invention of writing, before the wheel, and before the first seeds of agriculture were deliberately sown. The site forces us to confront a startling possibility. What if the drive to create monumental art and gather for shared ritual was not the result of civilization, but its very cause? The very stones of Göbekli Tepe whisper this revolutionary idea. As you walk through the excavated enclosures, you are surrounded by a forest of massive, T-shaped pillars. Each one is a canvas intricately carved with a symbolic menagerie. You see a fox, its body elongated in a graceful curve, a scorpion rendered with menacing clarity. A vulture, its wings spread wide and serpents slithering across the limestone surface. These are not casual sketches or simple depictions of local wildlife. They are highly stylized, repeating forms, a curated collection of symbols frozen in time. Researchers have long debated their meaning. Were these animals early representations of constellations, mapping the heavens onto the earth? Could they signify totemic clans where a fox family or a scorpion tribe contributed to this grand project, marking their identity on the pillars they raised? Or do they represent a complex spiritual belief system, a world where animals held power and acted as messengers between the human and spirit realms? The true function of Göbekli Tepe remains one of archaeology's greatest puzzles, but its implication is clear. Here, at the dawn of our story, it was the symbolic mind that took the first step. The human need to express shared beliefs, to carve meaning into the world, may have been the spark that brought people together, inspiring the cooperation and social organization that would eventually lead to farming, cities, and all that followed. Göbekli Tepe is not merely a temple, it is a testament to the power of an idea, a place where symbolism literally built the foundation for the world we know. Another great civilization rose in the lush floodplains of the Indus Valley, a contemporary of Egypt and Mesopotamia that mastered urban planning on a grand scale. Yet for all its sophistication, its voice remains silent, locked within a script that has defied every attempt at translation. Across thousands of small stone seals, typically square and no larger than a postage stamp, we find their legacy. These seals are miniature masterpieces, carved with elegant animal figures like the robust humped bull and a mysterious, stylized creature often called the unicorn. Above each animal runs a short, crisp line of symbolic characters, a script comprised of abstract signs that look like a careful blend of stick figures and geometric shapes. This is not casual graffiti, it is a formalized system, a true writing system used by one of the world's first great civilizations. The very nature of these artifacts presents the central puzzle. They are beautiful, they are abundant, but the messages they carry are frustratingly brief. Most inscriptions contain only 4 or 5 characters, with the longest known text running to just 26 signs. There is no epic poetry here, no royal proclamation, no lengthy legal code. It is as if we have found the business cards of an entire civilization, but we cannot read the names or titles. The greatest obstacle, the one that has kept this code unbroken for over a century, is the absence of a key. For the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Rosetta Stone provided a parallel text in a known language, a linguistic bridge. For the Indus script, no such bilingual inscription has ever been found. Without it, researchers are like cryptographers trying to solve a cipher without knowing the original language, working in a profound and total darkness. So how do you decipher a language when you have no dictionary and only fragments of sentences? Modern efforts have turned to the cold, impartial logic of computers. Computational linguists feed every known inscription into algorithms that analyze pattern frequency and structural syntax. They search for prefixes and suffixes, for the statistical likelihood of certain signs appearing together, for any hint of a grammatical rule. This painstaking work has yielded some clues, suggesting the script might read from right to left and that it likely represents a full language, not just a set of clan symbols or religious icons. Yet the core meaning remains just out of reach. The failure to unlock the Indus Valley script means an entire worldview is lost to us. We can marvel at their well-planned cities with their advanced drainage systems, but we cannot hear their stories, their laws, or their prayers. We see the ubiquitous unicorn, but we do not know if it was a sacred symbol, a royal emblem, or something else entirely. Most tantalizing of all, we are left to wonder if this unique script contains echoes of that older, global symbol language, or if it represents a completely independent branch of human expression. This silence is a powerful reminder of the fragility of knowledge itself, and of the immense, untold chapters in the story of our shared human past. From the silent, miniature script of the Indus Valley, we travel to a canvas of breathtaking scale. In the arid plains of southern Peru, an entire landscape was transformed into a message. The Nazca lines are not carved into stone, but scraped into the desert floor, a series of immense geoglyphs that stretch for miles across the Pampa Colorada. Here, the symbolic language we have been tracing expands to a monumental proportion. You stand on the ground and see only faint trails, pathways of discolored gravel where the dark surface stones have been removed to reveal the lighter earth beneath. The true impact of these lines is invisible from the human scale. It is only from the vantage point of the sky that the forms reveal themselves with stunning clarity. A colossal hummingbird, its beak perfectly elongated, an intricate spider, its legs articulated with anatomical precision, a strange humanoid figure with wide eyes, often nicknamed the astronaut, that seems to wave from the hillside. The creation of these figures was a staggering communal effort. For centuries, the Nazca people meticulously moved stones, following pre-planned designs that were scaled up from smaller models. They worked on a canvas so vast they could never see the full picture they were creating, trusting in a knowledge passed down through generations. This raises the central mystery: for whom were these lines intended? One prominent theory views them as a giant astronomical calendar. Certain lines align with the sun's position on the solstices, while other shapes may map star constellations important to the Nazca worldview. They could have functioned as a celestial clock, marking the times for planting and ritual in a region where water was the most precious resource. Another compelling idea casts them as ritual pathways. These long, straight lines and elaborate figures may have been walked by priests and participants during sacred ceremonies, a form of pilgrimage where the journey along the symbol was as important as the symbol itself. The act of walking the hummingbird's wing or the spider's leg could have been a way to invoke the power of these beings, to connect with the spirit of the animal and the life force it represented. The most poignant theory connects them directly to the harsh environment. The Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth. These immense offerings, these beautiful and intricate prayers etched into the earth, may have been a desperate and hopeful plea to gods in the sky. By creating these symbols on a scale only a deity could appreciate, they were perhaps asking for the gift of water, for the clouds to gather and the rivers to flow once more. The Nazca lines represent the ultimate scaling up of the symbolic language. They integrate an entire region into a single, vast artistic and spiritual statement. They push the very definition of communication, suggesting that the most important messages are not always meant for human eyes, but are intended for the cosmos itself, a permanent record of a people's faith, their fears, and their profound connection to a world seen and unseen. The silent symbols we find carved across the globe may not be records of an external world, but maps of an internal one. A compelling theory suggests the source of this universal language lies within the very wiring of the human brain, surfacing during altered states of consciousness. This is the neuropsychological model, which proposes that our nervous system, under specific conditions like prolonged rhythmic drumming, deep meditation, or ceremonial practices, generates a limited set of innate visual patterns known as phosphenes. These are the geometric shapes we see when we close our eyes tightly, the luminous grids, zigzags, dots, and spirals that flicker in the mind's eye. For ancient shamans and vision seekers, these internal lights were not random noise, but the first stage of a profound spiritual journey, the doorway to other realms. The art created from these experiences becomes a direct tracing of this inner landscape. In the rock art of the San people of South Africa, we see this connection vividly. Their paintings, often created as part of elaborate rituals, depict figures with zigzag lines emanating from their bodies, representing the sensation of supernatural energy or potency coursing through them during a trance state. The same geometric vocabulary appears thousands of years earlier in the deep caves of Paleolithic Europe, where dots, ladders, and nested curves adorn the walls alongside animals. Half a world away, the intricate cross-hatched patterns and meandering lines of Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime art also echo these fundamental forms, mapping the sacred geography and ancestral stories accessed in heightened states of awareness. The spiral, one of our most persistent global symbols, is a classic example of a phosphine form. When a shaman in the Americas and a seer in ancient Europe both depict a spiral, they may be independently recording the same internal visual experience, a sensation of vortex energy or a journey into the center of the self. This provides a powerful biological explanation for the global resonance of these core symbols. They are not necessarily ideas that were carried from culture to culture, but visions that arose spontaneously from within the human mind itself, a shared phenomenology projected onto stone. The cave wall and the cliff face became the canvas for this collective inner vision, a place to fix the fleeting images of the spirit world and make them a permanent part of the community's shared reality. This perspective transforms the symbols from a mysterious language we must decode into a natural, biological heritage, a testament to the universal human capacity to journey inward and bring back visions to share with the world. The stones themselves seem to look upward, their carvings pointing toward the heavens. This connection between earth and sky is not poetic license, but a precise science etched in granite and limestone. The Great Pyramids of Giza present one of the most debated celestial correlations. A compelling theory suggests their ground plan mirrors the belt stars of the Orion constellation, with the Nile River representing the Milky Way. This was not a random act of building, but a deliberate effort to create a mirror of the heavens on Earth, a permanent home for the pharaoh's soul among the imperishable stars. Far to the north, the massive tomb of Newgrange performs a solar miracle each winter. As the sun rises on the winter solstice, a narrow beam of light penetrates a roof box above the entrance and travels down a long, dark passageway to illuminate the inner chamber for precisely 17 minutes. This was an incredible feat of engineering and astronomical observation, a way to mark the year's darkest day and signal the sun's promised return, bringing light and hope to the deepest dark. Across cultures, the Pleiades star cluster held a special place in the human imagination. Known as the Seven Sisters in Greek myth, this tiny, sparkling group appears in the agricultural lore of the ancient Greeks, who linked its rising and setting to the sailing and farming seasons. On the other side of the world, the Maya of Mesoamerica also tracked the Pleiades with precision, using its movements to time their sacred ceremonies and planting cycles. In Japan, this same cluster is called Subaru, and its image is woven into their cultural traditions. This shared focus on a specific, faint group of stars speaks to a universal need. Why were these cycles so vital for societies transitioning from hunting to farming? Tracking the sun's journey was a matter of survival. Knowing the exact day of the solstice or equinox told you when to plant your seeds to ensure a harvest. For navigators on the open ocean, the stars were the only reliable map. For priests and rulers, maintaining a calendar was a sacred duty, a way to perform rituals at the correct cosmic moment to maintain the balance of the world. By encoding this knowledge into their most enduring symbols and structures, our ancestors turned the entire sky into a shared library, a clock, and a compass. The spiral on a tomb might chart the soul's journey to the afterlife, while the alignment of a stone circle marked the community's place within the great, turning cosmos. This was a global project to read the sky, a silent conversation where every culture was adding its own observations to a collective human understanding of the universe. These silent symbols, carved for spirits and stars, eventually faced a very human problem: bureaucracy. As villages swelled into cities and kingdoms expanded their reach, the old ways of recording information were no longer enough. A tally of sheep or a jar of grain needed a label, a king's decree had to travel across his realm, and a complex myth required preservation beyond the memory of a single storyteller. This practical pressure forced the global language of symbols to evolve, to become less a map of the mind and more a tool of the state. The journey from a picture of a thing to a sound you speak was one of the most revolutionary leaps in human history. We can trace this extraordinary transformation in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia. The Sumerians began with simple pictographs, sharp little pictures scratched into wet clay tablets. A drawing of a head with a bowl meant to eat. A schematic of a bird was a bird, but soon they encountered a fundamental limitation. How do you write an abstract idea like divinity or life? How do you record a person's name? Their ingenious solution was the Rebus principle, a conceptual masterstroke. They began using the symbol for a concrete object to represent the sound of that object's word, regardless of its meaning. For instance, the Sumerian word for water was pronounced A, so they started using the water symbol to represent the sound A. In other words, the symbol for an arrow, pronounced Tai, could now be used to write the word for life, which also sounded like Tai. It was a shift from drawing what you see to writing what you hear. Over centuries, these pictographs were simplified and stylized for speed, pressed into the clay with a wedge-shaped stylus, becoming the abstract script we know as cuneiform. The same evolutionary path unfolded along the Nile. The beautifully detailed hieroglyphs, carved with such care on temple walls and tombs, were the formal script for eternity. But for the daily business of tax records, letters, and administrative documents, the Egyptian scribes developed a cursive, shorthand version known as hieratic. This was not a different language, but a streamlined, faster way to write the same sounds and ideas, a direct adaptation from the monumental to the practical. This process reveals a profound truth about the global symbols we have been following. The spiral, the handprint, the animal figure, these were the raw material, the shared visual vocabulary of humanity's early childhood. As societies grew more complex, they took this shared vocabulary and began to formalize it, to lock it into a specific grammatical and phonetic system. What was once a universal symbol for water, understood intuitively across cultures, became in Sumer the sign for the sound A, and in Egypt a different glyph with its own phonetic value. The universal language did not vanish, it fragmented and specialized, giving birth to the world's first true writing systems. This was the moment the silent stones began to speak in sentences, and human history, as a recorded story, truly began. These silent symbols, carved into stone and whispered in ritual, found their true voice in story. Across the ancient world, the same images that were etched into monuments blossomed into epic tales, a global library of myths that used allegory and character to explain the very same cosmic principles. The symbols provided the vocabulary, and mythology wove that vocabulary into a narrative everyone could understand and remember. A powerful, recurring symbol in these stories is the world tree, an axis that connects the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. In Norse mythology, this is Yggdrasil, the immense ash tree whose roots and branches hold the 9 worlds. In the myths of the Maya, it is the Waka-chan, the cosmic tree that raised the sky from the primordial sea. This was not just a fanciful image, but a profound symbol for the structure of the cosmos itself, a central pillar of order in a chaotic universe. Another narrative that echoes across continents is the story of the Great Deluge. The Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh details a catastrophic flood sent by angry gods, with a hero named Utnapishtim who builds a boat to preserve life. A strikingly similar story is told in the Popol Vuh of the Maya, where the gods send a flood of resin to destroy a failed creation. And we find it again in the Hindu scriptures, with the sage Manu saved from a great flood by a giant fish. This shared motif of a world-cleansing flood speaks to a deep-seated human memory, perhaps of very real, catastrophic climate events at the end of the last ice age, transformed into a universal story about divine judgment, survival, and rebirth. Then there is the poignant journey of the dying and rising god, a symbol of the seasonal cycle of decay and regeneration. In the Mediterranean, we have the story of the Egyptian god Osiris, who is killed and dismembered, only to be resurrected as the lord of the afterlife, a direct parallel to the planting and sprouting of the grain. In Mesopotamia, the goddess Inanna descends into the underworld and is resurrected. And in the cyclical myths of many agricultural societies, a god or goddess of vegetation dies with the harvest and is reborn with the spring rain. This archetype gave people a framework for understanding the most fundamental and sometimes frightening rhythms of nature, assuring them that death was not an end, but a necessary phase in an eternal return to life. And weaving through many of these stories is the serpent or the dragon, the ultimate symbol of primal chaos. In the Babylonian creation epic, the storm god Marduk battles and slays the sea serpent Tiamat, using her body to create the ordered world. In Norse myth, the great serpent Jörmungandr encircles the earth, awaiting the final battle of Ragnarok. From Scandinavia to Mesoamerica, the serpent represents the untamed, destructive forces that must be overcome by a hero or a god to establish and maintain cosmic order. When we listen to these myths, we realize our ancestors were not just telling random stories. They were using a shared symbolic language to answer the biggest questions. Why does the sun rise and set? Why do the seasons change? How did the world begin? The spiral, the circle, and the labyrinth found their narrative form in these epic cycles of creation, destruction, and the hero's quest. The stones gave the symbols permanence, but the myths gave them a soul, ensuring that this global language was not only seen, but heard, remembered, and passed down through the ages, from one generation of storytellers to the next. The world our ancestors walked was not a blank slate, but a living partner in their symbolic conversation. The very ground beneath their feet, the animals they shared the land with, and the climate that dictated their survival all left an indelible mark on the symbols they carved and painted. This intimate relationship with the environment led to a beautiful duality in the global language, one with both strikingly unique dialects and profound universal themes. In the vast, sun-scorched deserts, where life depended on the relentless journey of the sun and the precise appearance of stars for navigation, celestial symbols became the heart of cosmology. The sun was not just a symbol, it was a god, a life-giver, and a potential destroyer. Its daily path and seasonal strength were matters of life and death, making solar disks and star maps central to their art and ritual. Meanwhile, in the fertile river valleys of the Nile and the Indus, a different set of symbols flourished. Here, life was dictated by the predictable yet powerful flooding of the great rivers. Symbols of water, fish, and lush vegetation like the lotus flower became dominant motifs, representing not just fertility and abundance, but the very cyclical nature of their existence, the annual death and rebirth of the land brought by the floodwaters. This environmental influence extended powerfully into the animal kingdom depicted in their art. The people of the Arctic, living in a world of ice and sea, naturally revered the animals that shared their harsh landscape. The immense polar bear, a master of the frozen realm, and the great whales, symbols of the mysterious depths, feature prominently in their spiritual imagery as powerful spirits and providers. Contrast this with the dense, vibrant jungles of the tropics, where the stealthy jaguar became a near-universal symbol of shamanic power and nocturnal mystery, and the clever monkey often represented trickster deities or aspects of primal humanity. Yet, amidst this beautiful diversity, we find a powerful convergence. The serpent, an animal that has adapted to nearly every ecosystem on Earth, from the driest desert to the wettest rainforest, appears as a sacred symbol in almost every ancient culture. Its ability to shed its skin made it a natural emblem of rebirth and healing, while its potential danger cast it as a guardian of hidden knowledge or a representative of chaotic primal forces. This analysis reveals that the global symbol language was never a monolithic code. It was a living, breathing dialogue between the universal human mind and the specific, powerful realities of the local world. Our ancestors looked out upon their unique homes and used their shared cognitive toolkit to translate what they saw, creating a lexicon that was at once deeply personal to their experience and hauntingly familiar to all of humanity. These ancient symbols did not fade into history, they simply found new mediums. The very same archetypal forms that were carved into stone now appear on the screens we stare at every day, proving their power is not bound by time. Look at the Apple logo, a single bitten fruit. This is a direct, if unintentional, echo of the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge, a symbol of enlightenment, temptation, and a fundamental shift in human awareness. It is a modern corporate sigil that taps directly into one of our oldest stories about the pursuit of knowledge. The labyrinth, once a stone path for spiritual pilgrims, has been digitally resurrected. Mindfulness apps use its winding path as a tool for focused meditation, a way to quiet the mind by tracing a journey to a center of calm. In video games, the labyrinth is the core structure of countless dungeons and levels, presenting players with a classic hero's journey filled with challenges, puzzles, and a final reward, mirroring the ancient quest for self-discovery. And the mandala, that universal symbol of the integrated self, continues to be created. It is found in the intricate stained glass rose windows of cathedrals, in the temporary sand paintings of Tibetan monks, and in the adult coloring books used for modern stress relief. Its purpose remains unchanged, to represent wholeness and serve as a focal point for contemplation. This is not a case of simple borrowing. It is evidence that these shapes are hardwired into our collective psyche. When a graphic designer chooses a spiral or a game developer builds a labyrinth, they are not necessarily studying archaeology. They are intuitively selecting forms that feel right, that communicate complex ideas about journey, knowledge, and identity on a subconscious level. The ancient global language was never lost. It just learned to speak in the vernacular of our time, whispering the same eternal truths through the icons and stories of our digital age. Yet the profound mystery of these shared symbols has a shadow, a world of speculation where genuine questions can drift into unsubstantiated fantasy. It is crucial to navigate this space with a clear-eyed focus on evidence, separating the incredible findings of archaeology from the merely incredulous. One of the most persistent ideas is the concept of a single lost mother civilization, a place like Atlantis or Mu, from which all ancient knowledge supposedly flowed. This is a compelling narrative, a tidy answer to a messy puzzle, but the archaeological record tells a different, more complex story. There is no single point of origin in the strata of the earth, no layer of civilization that suddenly appears fully formed to gift its wisdom to the world. Instead, we see the slow, patient, and independent flowering of human genius across countless regions, each adapting similar symbolic ideas to their own unique environments and challenges. Another common pitfall lies in misreading the landscape itself. A rock formation weathered by wind and rain over millennia can sometimes bear a striking resemblance to a carved face or a written character. Without the rigorous tools of context and dating, it is easy to see intentional design where only natural processes are at work. This is where the science of archaeology provides its essential anchors. Radiocarbon dating allows researchers to determine the precise age of organic materials found alongside artifacts, placing symbols in their correct moment in time. The principle of context is equally vital, understanding that a symbol's meaning is inextricably linked to its surroundings, whether it was found in a tomb, a trash pit, or a temple. And perhaps most importantly, the system of peer review ensures that extraordinary claims are vetted by the wider community of experts, challenging assumptions and demanding reproducible evidence. This disciplined approach does not diminish the wonder of our ancient past. On the contrary, it reveals a truth far more astonishing than any fiction. The real mystery is not a sunken continent, but the breathtaking phenomenon of psychic unity, the independent yet parallel evolution of the human spirit. By grounding our understanding in verifiable data, we honor the genuine ingenuity of our ancestors and open ourselves to the authentic and still deeply mysterious conversation they left carved in stone. This silent library of stone is fragile, and its pages are slowly crumbling away. The very symbols that have survived for millennia now face a new and accelerated set of threats, turning their preservation into a global ethical imperative. Natural erosion, a patient force that has always worked across centuries, is now accelerated by climate change. Rising sea levels and increasingly violent coastal storms are actively eating away at shorelines, threatening to wash away irreplaceable sites. In Scotland, ancient cup and ring marks carved into coastal outcrops are being lost to the sea, their complex messages erased by salt water and pounding waves. Inland, the problem is often human activity. Uncontrolled urban development can pave over unexcavated sites before they are even documented. Deliberate vandalism, whether from ignorance or defacement, scars these sacred canvases with modern graffiti. Perhaps one of the most insidious threats comes from admiration itself. Mass tourism, while a source of vital revenue, brings with it a slow degradation. The mere breath and touch of thousands of visitors can alter the microclimate of a cave, causing ancient pigments to flake and fade. The very act of loving these places to death is a real and present danger. In response to this crisis, a global network of guardians has emerged. Organizations like the UNESCO World Heritage Center work to designate and protect sites of outstanding universal value, providing a framework for international cooperation and funding. On the ground, local archaeological trusts and community groups perform the painstaking work of documentation using 3D scanning and digital photography, creating high-resolution records of every carving before it can be lost. They install protective barriers, monitor structural stability, and carefully clean surfaces without damaging the original work. This is more than just technical conservation. It is an act of profound respect for our shared story. These stones do not belong to a single nation, but to all of humanity. They are the collective inheritance of every person alive today, a physical connection to the very roots of human consciousness. To lose even one of these carved panels is not like losing a single book from a library, but like burning a unique, handwritten page from the only copy of our collective prehistory. The ethical choice is clear. We must become the generation that decided to listen, to protect, and to ensure these silent voices are not finally silenced. The silent stones are beginning to speak, their voices amplified by tools our ancestors could never have conceived. We are on the cusp of a revolution in our understanding of the global symbol language, driven by technologies that act as digital shovels and universal translators. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are now being trained to scan millions of images of rock art and carvings from across the world. These systems do not get tired. They can detect subtle, recurring patterns in the curvature of a line or the clustering of symbols that might escape even the most trained human eye. By cross-referencing these patterns across global databases, I can identify connections between a spiral in Scotland and a coil in Peru at a speed and scale that was once pure fantasy, moving us from anecdotal similarities to statistically significant evidence of a shared symbolic vocabulary. Beneath the dense green canopy of jungles in Central America and Southeast Asia, another technological marvel is revealing lost worlds. LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, uses laser pulses fired from aircraft to digitally strip away the vegetation, mapping the ground surface with astonishing precision. What appears from the ground to be an impenetrable wilderness is often, according to the LiDAR map, a carefully engineered ceremonial landscape. Vast networks of processional roads, hidden plazas, and previously unknown monuments are coming to light, showing us that the symbols we find on isolated stones were part of a much larger, integrated design. We are no longer just studying individual symbols, but the very stages upon which this ancient language was performed. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, the story is being written at a molecular level. Advanced genetic analysis of ancient remains is clarifying the great human migrations in stunning detail, tracing the footsteps of populations across continents and through millennia. This provides a crucial map against which we can plot the dispersal of symbols. If a specific symbol appears in two distant locations, genetic evidence can now tell us whether those two populations shared a common ancestor who carried the symbol with them, or if they developed it independently after their paths diverged. It is a powerful tool for testing the seafaring hypothesis versus the theory of psychic unity. Back in the field, archaeologists now wield handheld devices that would seem like magic to their predecessors. Portable X-ray fluorescence guns can be pointed at a painted symbol and, without touching or damaging the surface, instantly reveal the elemental composition of the pigments. This tells a story of its own. If the red ochre used in a cave in Spain has a chemical fingerprint that matches a quarry in North Africa, it unveils a prehistoric trade route, proving that either the materials or the people who valued them were moving across vast distances, carrying their symbolic ideas with them. The next decade promises to be the most revealing chapter yet in this long, silent story. These technologies are not just giving us more data, they are helping us perceive the grammar of this visual communication. We are starting to see how symbols were combined, in what order they were placed, and how their meanings might have changed when they appeared alongside different partners. We are moving from a collection of beautiful, mysterious words toward understanding the syntax of a lost global dialogue, a conversation that is finally breaking through the static of time. So we are left with two grand narratives, two potential keys to the same global lock. One speaks of daring voyages across uncharted seas, a world connected by the courage of ancient mariners. The other describes an inward journey, a landscape of the mind whose contours are shared by every human born. The evidence for both is compelling, and the debate between diffusion and independent invention has shaped archaeology for over a century. But what if the truth is not a choice between these two paths, but the ground upon which both paths were built? The most coherent picture emerges not from a single theory, but from a beautiful synthesis. The foundation of this global language appears to be our shared neurobiology. The human nervous system, when pushed into altered states through ritual, meditation, or sensory deprivation, reliably generates a limited set of geometric patterns. These phosphenes, these internal lights, are the universal raw material. They explain why a child in France, a shaman in the Amazon, and a meditator in Tibet might all independently envision a spiral or a zigzag. This is the deep, hardwired grammar of our consciousness. Upon this biological foundation, the layers of culture and experience were built. Every human community, regardless of location, looked up at the same sun, moon, and stars. They all witnessed the cycle of seasons, the mystery of birth, and the finality of a life's end. They all faced the universal challenges of forming communities, establishing leadership, and explaining their place in the cosmos. These shared experiences acted like a filter, shaping the raw symbols from the mind into specific, culturally relevant forms. A spiral could become a solstice marker in Ireland, a representation of a creator serpent in Australia, or a symbol of spiritual journey in Crete, all while retaining its core essence of cyclical motion. And then, crucially, we must add the spark of contact. The seafaring hypothesis may not require a lost super-civilization to be valid. It only needs the occasional, breathtaking voyage, the rare but profound meeting of cultures. A single successful crossing could introduce a new way of carving a spiral or a new story about the Pleiades, which then took root and adapted to its new home, blending with the local symbolic vocabulary. This interplay creates a chorus, not a solo. The universal symbol language is not a monologue delivered from a single source. It is a global polyphony, a symphony of countless human communities. They were all singing, each in their own cultural dialect, but the songs were hauntingly similar because they were born from the same instrument, the human mind, and composed in response to the same universal experiences. The spiral in stone is both an internal vision and a shared observation, a personal meditation and a potential heirloom from a forgotten traveler. It is this rich, multifaceted origin that gives these ancient symbols their enduring power, allowing them to speak across the millennia to something fundamental within us all. This universal language carved in stone is ultimately a testament to our shared humanity. Across continents and millennia, the same symbols of the spiral, the handprint, and the labyrinth form a connective thread, revealing a deep, underlying unity in how our ancestors perceived their world. They looked upon the same sun and stars, felt the same awe at the cycle of life, and grappled with the same profound questions of existence. Their responses, etched into enduring rock, speak of a collective wonder, a shared reverence, and a common aspiration to find meaning in a vast and mysterious cosmos. While the full grammar of this ancient dialogue may forever hold its secrets, the pursuit of understanding it profoundly enriches our appreciation for the spiritual depth and sheer ingenuity of those who came before us. This exploration does not have to end here. Let it be a starting point for your own curiosity. The next time you visit a local museum, look closer at the ancient art. Question the stories behind the symbols you see. What universal human experience might they be expressing? Share your own thoughts and discoveries in the comments below. The conversation with our past is an ongoing, living dialogue, and your voice, your perspective, is now a vital part of it.